The next thing, apart from the followers and the audience part that is there, we have to check out on the engagement parameter also. Now, once you are getting into the engagement parameter, the first thing that comes into our mind is the engagement rate. Now, how do you calculate on the engagement rate? Engagement rate is nothing but the average engagement per post, right? So the count of likes, comments, as well as share or save, whatever that is having with every single post, right? That needs to be checked out on, and it is a average value that is being taken care of. Now you have a few different tools to give you an understanding of this average engagement rate, right? We'll discuss on with that in the next slide in itself. Now you divide that specific engagement per post, average engagement per post, with the count of followers that are there for that influencer, and you multiply it with 100 to get a engagement rate in percentage value. Now, once you have had that engagement rate, you can segregate once again the specific benchmarks which are aligned with the type of influencer. So if it is a micro influencer having close to 10,000 followers, you can access on that the engagement rate will be hovering around 7.5. So if it is a micro influencer, a 7.5 engagement rate is a healthy sign, right? Anything close to that, it is good. Right. The next aspect is with a small influencer with less than 50,000 followers, their engagement rate will hover around 6%. Right. Now, anything more than that will always be a positive sign for us, right? If I'm exploring on with any kind of a influencer. The third one is a medium influencer with less than 500,000 followers. Their engagement rate will hover around 4.5. Any large influencer with less than 1 million followers will be having an engagement rate of 3%, and the mega influencer will be having the engagement rate of 1.5%. Now there will be a question that why a mega influencer is having a basic engagement rate of 1.5%. Now again, understand the engagement, the Instagram algorithm, right, or mostly the social media platforms, the algorithm, it works in the kind of scenario that if it is a large influencer, right, if it is a big influencer with too many different followers, in the beginning, whenever the influencer is posting a kind of content, it is not being shown across to the entire 1 million followers, right? It is in a chunks, small chunks that the content is being shown. Now within that time, hence what happens, there is a very low chance that the engagement for those posts will be on a higher side, right? It is very pertinent that whenever there is a larger influencer, right, or with a big influencer with 1 million plus kind of followers, the engagement rate will be coming down, right? And that is drastically being shown in the benchmark scores that you can see, 1.5%. So if perhaps I, being a social media marketer, searching out for an influencer, it is always a good idea to be exploring on with influencers close to 10 to 50,000, because here we get an higher engagement rate of 6%. And on the other hand, if I'm not choosing on mega or large influencers, and if I'm choosing on a few different 2 to 3 different small influencers, it will be a ball game totally, right? It will be a sweep for me, because I'll be able to get in good amount of engagement with the posts that I am adding up with, right? So this is again a kind of strategy that we should be taking in once we are exploring on with an influencer. We have a very good tool which is called Social Blade, right? It gives you a certain features of choosing on with the engagement rate at a free of cost, but most of the times it might also ask you for a subscription. So make that into an understanding. Not everything, every good tool perhaps will be free for us, right? So it might charge us, but the thing is that this is a good tool to actually explore for your engagement rates. Now I've taken on that same influencer for us, that is Lewis, which you can see out here. The engagement rate which is being calculated by Social Blade is hovering around 3.15%. So that is close to the numbers that we were having in with the count of followers that were there, right? So in that scenario, if I'm exploring on with our product, right, and I'm focusing on with a fitness niche, then Lewis is a perfect fit for me, because it will be it is able to generate on with something close to 3.15% kind of an engagement rate, like which is fitting into our benchmark scores that we had already discussing. On the other hand, if I'm checking out with a different influencer, that is Keith or Kite, whatever that you can see out here, the engagement rate with the count of followers, that is 19,000 followers that you can see out here, right? The engagement rate is massive, 4 times more than what Lewis is able to generate, and it is 12.39%, right? As the kind of thing that we were actually discussing on, right? That if I'm choosing on with a small or a medium kind of influencer, what happens is that or rather in fact the small influencers, I'll be able to have a higher engagement rate than any kind of an influencer which is a mega or a large kind of an influencer that is there, right? This is very much evident with the numbers that you can see, right? So I'll perhaps, like, if for my brand, for my company, I'll be choosing on with 2 to 3 different this Keith type of business coaches or fitness coaches that you can see, so that my my post will be able to garner a higher reach as well as a higher engagement rate, right? So that is the clear differentiation that you can see once we are assessing these these 2 different influencers in the same niche of fitness. Now, apart from that specific analysis of the engagement rate, another very important thing that we should be rather doing is the kind of the analysis for the comments. Now, for this one, this is an example of Luis, which you can see out here. Luis is an influencer who is always engaging with the followers, right? So whenever there is a message which is coming in, he is always with every post in itself, you can see there is a good amount of engagement, right? There's a positive discussion which is happening in, right, with the post. Now, this is also an important factor that needs to be checked out, right? So even though the engagement rate is 3.5%, but still, once I'm checking out that there is a good amount of interaction which is happening in, right, with Luis as well as the followers, this is a positive sign for me, right? So I'll always be choosing on Luis, because this is a good sign for my brand promotion, that you can call it as. Now, in the next part, right, if I'm exploring on the second influencer, that is Keith, right, out here. Now, this lady is not that much interactive with the followers, with the comments which has been added out here, right? Rather than, she is not even interacting with the any kind of a post or the any kind of a comment which has been put up on, right? But still, her engagement rate is to 12.39%, because the followers which are there, right, they are very much active, right, and they are engaging with the post that you can see out here, right? So both the scenarios are giving me positive signs, right, once I start on analyzing the comments out here. The next part, once we get into, apart from your audience as well as these followers and stuff that are there, it is the content part. Now, once you are exploring on with content, right, which is the major thing that needs to be considered on, the first thing comes in quality, right? Every time whenever we check out on the posts, right, which the influencer is posting in, we have to check on with the kind of the quality of the post which is being added on, right? The images has to be super crisp. It should be a combination of different carousels, regular images, reels, stories, whatever, different assets which Instagram is adding up on. So quality is again an important thing that needs to be considered. The second one is the originality part, right? So whether the posts which have been put up on, right, it is actually being promoted or added up by the influencer himself or herself or not, right? And perhaps the influencer might be shy enough to put up his or her own face, right, in the images or in the videos that he or she is adding up on, right? Mostly it is tried and tested. Whenever a person is showing his or her face in the posts that have been added on, it garners much more engagement than the regular faceless posts which are being made in. So originality is again a very important thing that needs to be considered. The third thing is suitability. Now, if I am into fitness, right, there can be two different, like for example, I can have two different products. I can have a fitness powder, right, the protein shakes and powders that are there. I can have a fitness shoe also, fitness gears. Now, as per the kind of posts, right, which the influencer is making it, I have to be choosing on whether a fitness protein shake boosting, right, will be helpful for me or not, right, or something like a fitness gear is a ideal product to to that gets added, that gets synchronized with the influencer, right? So that suitability is again an important thing that needs to be considered. The second last option, it is with frequency, right? How frequent that the influencer is posting in, right? On an average, it should be like minimum of 2 to 3 posts if it is rather on YouTube, right? And the person is an YouTube influencer, right? At least 2 long form videos is fine, right? A person can add up in a week. Apart from that, if it is like if we are considering on something like Instagram, it is always a good idea that if I'm I'm searching out for an influencer who is like very much active, as well as adding relevant post consistently, at least like every day or every alternate day, perhaps the post should be getting landed into his or her profile. So that is also an important factor that needs to be considered. And the last one is the saturation part. We also need to be checking out whether the influencer is too much promoting on different products and services. If the influencer is promoting like very high, not very high rather, like the frequency of posts or of promotion of posts is too much, right, it is very frequent, then what happens, there will be a kind of saturation in the minds of their audiences, right? They will not be ready to accept the promotion posts that we will be rather adding up with, right? So just need to be checking out that whether the posts which are being added by the influencer are too many like sponsored content, right? So if it is there, then we should be refraining ourselves from tying up or assessing that specific influencer, right? I hope so you got a fair bit of an understanding into this assessment of influencers, right? This is very much important to take up on before you make a choice of a influencer, right? So that's it for this video, and we'll catch up with you in our upcoming videos.